Hello and welcome to the Sport Walk Show, and hopefully the last edition for a while here in the studio, with the clocks having changed and spring being well and truly sprung. Today we're in full walk faster mode to tie in with our ongoing campaign, and that means we're looking at everything to do with speed in relation to walking. We'll be trying to explain the difference between speed and pace and why it matters. Kaz will be here with the first of her stepping out features, focusing on exactly how walking faster benefits us physically. We'll show you how to test your maximum speed potential so you can achieve faster times in your challenges. And I'll make a really feeble attempt to demonstrate why race walkers walk as they do. When we talk about sport walking, and in fact any kind of athletic activity, you'll often hear people like me referring both to speed and pace. So what exactly is the difference? And why should you care? Well, the simplest way to explain it is that pace is the time it'll take you to cover a given distance, usually a kilometre or a mile, and speed is how fast you're travelling while you cover that distance. Okay, so you're probably thinking, why don't I just focus on speed, because that's going to determine how long it's going to take me to cover that distance. And of course, that's a completely valid view to hold. You see, in terms of figuring out how long it'll take you to complete a challenge, either pace or speed will give you the information you need. But when you're looking to put your calculations into practice, in training, but especially on your challenges themselves, pace really steps up to be the more useful measure. So why is that? Well, it's actually a lot to do with the concept of working to a plan, rather than just simply going out and trying to go as fast as you can. If you're not working to a plan, you could actually go out too fast and then blow up before the end. Or the flip side, you could go out too slow and then have to make up too much time at the end. So if you're only focusing on how fast you're travelling, you're not thinking about speed in the context of your overall challenge and how to complete it in the time that you want. Working to a target pace gives you a predetermined measure that's easy to check up on as you go. So it's much simpler to keep tabs on whether you're on plan than simply knowing how fast you're travelling. For instance, you only need to know how long it took you to cover the last mile or kilometre to know if you're moving at the right speed. Pace is a standard measure in athletics, and its value can be realised in sport walking just as it can in running. You start with your time goal for that challenge, and then that will determine the pace you need to walk at to achieve that goal. For instance, if you're walking 5 kilometres and your goal is to complete the distance in under 45 minutes, knowing you're walking at a speed of 7 kilometres an hour isn't as useful as knowing that you're moving at a pace of around 8 minutes 30 per kilometre, which means you'll cover the distance in 42 minutes. Now, of course, you could argue that all of this is possible with a speed measure, and you would, of course, be completely right. But in sport, simplicity is key, and in practice, working to live pace data is more useful than working with live speed data in terms of the value of the information you're getting and how easy it is to process it on the fly. So there you are. About the only thing we can state categorically is that both pace and speed essentially do the same job. It's just that pace has shown itself to be the more useful way of measuring how fast you're moving. We get asked lots of questions across all of our social channels about training, technique, gear, you name it. So we thought it'd actually be quite a good idea to read some of them out and share the information with everyone. And maybe some of you will realise that there are other people out there wondering exactly the same things that you are. So, first question from halojimmy7. How fast can you walk a mile? Well, that did actually take a little bit of working out, to be honest, because I like to use kilometres, partly because everything rounds up nicely to tens, but also, to be completely honest, the numbers look bigger and everything looks much more impressive. But after a bit of mathematical jiggery-pokery and a bit of help from Google, I did manage to convert my stats, and that gave me a number of 12 to 12.5 minutes per mile. Nikita asked, among other things, what is a good device to accurately measure cadence? Now, this is a really good question because, of course, cadence is a very important factor in moving faster, as you'll know if you watched any of our other videos. The thing is, though, it's actually quite tricky to get a really solid number from a device unless you're using foot pods, which are those little blocks that you tie to your laces on your shoes and then pair with your watch. Most sport watches though will give you a cadence reading, and even if it's not bang on accurate, it's still pretty good and will give you an indication of where your cadence is at. But to be honest, walking to a really precise cadence isn't actually that necessary. All that matters is that you walk with a high cadence, and the best way to train yourself to do that is to use music. Ideally, you want to use a track with a tempo between 125 and 130 beats per minute, and realistically that means dance music. But for all you metalheads out there, fret ye not, because we're not referring to musical taste here. We're simply seeking a track with a really strong metronomic rhythm. Of course, if you really can't bring yourself to use dance music, then get yourself a click track or record a metronome on your phone and use that. Walking faster isn't just about hitting a time goal. We get physiological benefits over and above those that we get just by going walking at all. So in her first stepping out feature, Kaz is going to take us all right back to basics and walk through how your body reacts when you start to walk faster. Now this is going to be useful not just for those who are just starting out, but actually for all of us to remind ourselves of exactly what we're getting out of this.
Hi everyone, I'm Kaz, and today in Stepping Out I want to talk about the fitness and well-being benefits of walking faster. Firstly, your heart will pump faster to deliver more oxygen to the muscles in your legs and arms, and this means a bigger, stronger and more efficient heart. Your lung capacity and efficiency will increase too, and if you've heard of VO2 Max talked about, well, you can know that that will also increase. That simply means that your lungs will be more efficient at delivering oxygen to your body, and that's important because the more efficient your lungs are, the more you'll have for powering up those hills and the less tired you'll get. As if that wasn't enough, your muscle mass will begin to increase, and in particular slow twitch endurance muscle fibres, which means they will use more glucose even if you're eating pizza on the sofa. So that means a more streamlined body, which will be better defined and lighter. And will not only mean you look, feel and function better, but it will also mean you're lighter on the trails, giving you even more speed. But, like me, if you add weight when you start sport walking, this is no bad thing. I gained weight because I changed up the kind of exercise I was doing from predominantly spinning and boxing to adding a larger walking segment to my day. The result was my body changed shape, in that my legs and backside became even stronger, but my lungs became more efficient, and using biometrics, i.e. checking my resting heart rate and my recovery time, I definitely became fitter for endurance exercise. This was because I was walking for more time and with more consistency. So instead of an hour of high intensity training, I was spreading this out on a brisk walk for longer, with my work level on the whole being at around 70 to 80% of my maximum heart rate. At that level, the body favours fat burn than carbohydrates, so you can expect a leaner, more sustainable body shape and a fitness regime that doesn't floor you. The cherry on the top, in addition to your body coming up with the goods, your mind will too. Just by moving more quickly, your breath will begin to sync up more with your heart rate, and this causes your brain to release endorphins, which have a calming, feel-good effect on your mood and mindset. Now, to discover your training level and find your groove will be a gradual process, but you'll be surprised how effective regular training like this can be. So, if you haven't already, keep a check on your walking app and aim to shave some minutes off the time it usually takes you to walk a mile or a kilometre, because the faster you go, the better you will feel. So walk yourself into well-being, and I'll see you next time.
Right, time to update our winter training programme, and this is actually going to be the last update because, well, let's face it, it's now spring. But don't worry, we will have another section in the next show which is going to deal with the whole build-up period to your summer challenges. For this update, we're keeping everything we've put in place so far, and we're also keeping the mileage and pace targets we set in the last update. What we're going to change though is a couple of your weekday sessions, because we want to now add in 2 important adaptations to deliver strength and speed benefits as we move further into this spring block. So, to recap, you'll continue to walk 20 kilometres non-stop in one session at the weekend, ideally on the Saturday to allow you to have a full rest day on the Sunday. You'll also continue to divide the working week up as you see fit to complete a further 25 kilometres. But now we're going to give you 2 specific sessions to do, and you can fit them in however you want. The main thing is to prioritise these 2 sessions during the working week, and then simply to fit in the additional mileage on the other days. Now, when we talk about speed in this respect, we're not talking about you going flat out for the whole session. We're going to be doing a thing called FARTLEK. That's right, FARTLEK. Or as I prefer to call it, in the context of sport walking, fart walk. Okay, settle down. Now, FARTLEK, oh stop it, is a well-established training technique in running, and it can be really beneficial in sport walking too to help you build aerobic capacity. The principle is that you vary your speed throughout the session. Not in a rigid way like high-intensity interval training. You just go freestyle and mix fast and slower periods within the session. Now, in the context of sport walking training, this could mean mixing running and walking. It could mean mixing race walking and normal walking, or just simply varying your speed throughout the session. But it's very important to place emphasis on those harder efforts. Don't just go nice and easy to start with, put in one quick spurt in the middle and then back off for the rest of the session, because that's not going to get you anywhere. What we're looking for here is to gain fitness benefits over a number of months before your final build up to your summer challenges. And FARTLEK is a really great tool to deliver that. The other adapted session to include in your weekday schedule is a session of hill repeats. Now, rather obviously, this is dependent on you having some kind of hill nearby, and ideally quite a long and steep hill. But if you've really got nothing to play with, then you can always seek out some steps, or even use stairs in a multi-storey car park or in your office. Whatever you have to do, just try and find somewhere that gives you an ascent that can last at least 30 seconds. What you get from hill repeats is both an aerobic hit because you work hard in intervals, but more importantly, it's building leg strength that will make a huge difference when you're out on that challenge route. Start the session by walking out to your vert of choice and try and make that about 2 kilometres. If you can't walk out to it, walk for a couple of Ks before doing the hill repeats themselves. Start from a standing start at the base and then walk at a good strong pace up the hill or the steps until you reach the top. Then turn straight round and walk back down again. If you found it reasonably easy going, go a little faster next time. Pause for a short time at the bottom, no more than a minute, and then go again. You want to complete between 5 and 10 repeats, depending on how hard your ascent is, but as a baseline measure, you want to make sure that you get to the end and not be able to complete another one. Once you've done your repeats, walk back home, or go for an easy cool down walk of at least 1 kilometre, so you don't just suddenly stop and tighten up. Well, it's still really cold outside. It's early March, but I'm taking one for the team today because I've come out into the forest. I found a nice little quiet road and I want to show you why race walkers walk as they do. And it's all to do with biomechanics. Now, I think we should start by putting a few things straight. Usually when you hear people talking about race walking, it's really quite disparaging, isn't it? It's like, oh, it's the Ministry of Silly Walks and all that. But if you've ever tried to walk at around 13 kilometres an hour, you will know that is actually how you have to walk if you want to go that fast. It's not like they've all sort of got together in the pub and go, do you know what, we need to stand out a bit more. We need people to take notice of us. So why don't we walk in a really strange way, and that will get us lots of attention and that will help us grow our sport. They haven't done that. They walk as they do because that's how you have to walk if you want to go that fast. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at my kind of normal walking pace, which is usually around sort of 7:30 to 7:45 per kilometre. And for those of you who want it in imperial, there'll be a little ticker up that will make some conversions as we go along. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to gradually increase my speed until I reach that sweet spot, that point where I can't actually go any faster with a normal walking style. And then it's going to break into what is effectively a race walking technique, and that's the only way I'll be able to get faster. Right, let's get on with it. So yeah, I just walked down the road just to warm up a little bit, walk the way out. So I'm going to turn around. Right, okay, so we start walking normally. And I'm getting up quite quickly to what would be my comfortable fast cruising speed. Now I'm just pushing it further. I'm trying to see how fast I can go in my normal technique. And I've reached the limit now, I just can't go any faster, so I'm gonna now start to swing my arms. I'm being much more physical, and I'm letting the legs really flow. But it's all about the hip movement and the arm swing, and that's what's making the difference. Well, I have to say, that was a very interesting experiment. And what I found when I reached that point where I literally had to break into a race walking style, it was a little bit like, I suppose, like aeroplanes breaking the sound barrier. You're kind of pushing up against this flexible force. And it's only when you physically change the way you walk, you can actually break through, like bursting through the skin of a bubble. And you're set free, you're kind of released. And all of this speed potential then opens up in front of you. Now, I'm not going to say that that was a particularly good demonstration of good race walking technique on my part, far from it. But it does show actually what is possible. So the next time you see a walking race, maybe at the Olympics or at some other time, just remember these guys, they go like that because they have to. It's the only way you can achieve that sort of speed, by walking. If you think about it, we're kind of conditioned that naturally when we want to go fast, we just break into a run. So to hold what is a walking form with one foot on the ground at all times, at that speed, physically is actually very, very difficult. And that's why I think race walking is so remarkable, because it's such a technical discipline. And these guys really do deserve our respect for what they can achieve, the speeds that they can achieve. For me though, I think I'll stick to sport walking. Now, you could argue that saving time on the trail is not actually about speed. But let's be honest, if you can be more efficient on the trail and save time out there on your challenge, it'll mean you're going faster. And if that's not relevant to speed, I don't know what is. Anyway, we could play ping pong with this all day long, so let's just assume that I'm right. So here are 5 easy ways to save time on the trail and therefore go faster overall. When you're sport walking, you're seeking to complete the route in the shortest time you can. So obviously, if you can cut out any faff, that's going to help. So make sure you're really taking in your surroundings, soaking up the views and appreciating what you're seeing as you move along. Don't wait until you reach a viewpoint and go, "Oh, wow, that's magnificent." Do it the whole time as you're moving. You'll save loads of time, but also you'll enjoy the walk more because you're in a constant state of wowness. When you're sport walking, you don't need to be completely fixated on the trail in front of you, but you do want to be continually aware of what's coming, especially because if you know an obstacle or rough terrain is heading your way, you can be prepared for it and it'll slow you down much less. So keep scanning ahead, and when you spot something, start planning how you're going to deal with it. Stiles are there to give walkers a means of crossing a fenced boundary, so by their very definition, they're going to slow you down. But how much they slow you down depends on you. Take on board the fact that crossing stiles fast is a skill, and seek to practice your stile technique on every walk. Take in the footplate configuration, plan which foot you're going to start with. Some stiles are configured for a more natural step than others, so learn which ones are easy and which ones need perfecting. It might seem like you're taking all this a bit far, but just think about it. You can either make a big deal out of a stile or you can float effortlessly over it. Which would you prefer? Okay, so not every boundary crossing is a stile. Many are gates, and there's potential to save time here too. As you approach the gate, first identify the latch type. Is it a convenient long bar latch or a finger latch? Make sure by the time you reach it, you know the precise action you'll need to take to open it. Next, think about moving through the gate as like a dance. It's all about making one fast, fluid move to get through, close it, and move on. The best way is to spin 360 degrees because then you can keep some momentum, and this momentum can help you make sure the gate is fully closed before you spin round and head off. The key to navigating mud successfully and quickly is to seek out the firmest line, and that doesn't just mean heading to the edge to try and avoid it. Mud that looks dry will be firmer. And if there's a gravelly strip down the centre of what looks like a major mud patch, this will be faster and firmer than trying to skirt around the edge, getting stuck in the bushes. Always look ahead and plan before you reach it. And yes, sometimes you will just have to plough through and take the consequences if there are no easy options. As with so many trail obstacles, don't waste time looking for a better alternative if there isn't one. Just take the hit and move on. Okay, time for the show challenge, but actually it's a little bit different this time because we're not actually setting you a challenge, we are challenging you to measure your top speed. Knowing what your actual physical potential is in terms of how fast you can move is a really valuable thing for anyone in sport, but it's especially valuable for sport walkers where you have a time goal over a long distance. So my question to you is, how fast can you actually walk? I don't mean for 100 kilometers, I don't mean for a marathon or for 10k. I mean, what is your absolute top speed when you're walking normally as you do on a day-to-day basis? And if you can't answer that question, then you really do need to do this test. All you need to do is to prime your sports watch or sports app and then walk flat out over about 50 to 100 meters. Really bury yourself, but walk in the style that you would normally walk with. Doing something different just to go faster isn't going to give you any useful information at all. If you want, you can do a couple of runs, but at the end you'll have real hard data that speaks of your actual physical potential. Whenever we quiz people about their pace potential in sport walking, there's always a really clear difference between what they're actually capable of, what they perceive themselves to be capable of, and what they're hitting on a day-to-day basis. Then almost all the time when we walk with them and push the pace a little bit, they achieve a higher pace than they perceive themselves to be capable of. So doing this test reveals the truth. So there you are, the last show of the winter block. Next time we're going to be focusing on tarmac and how you can build challenge into your everyday walking. I'll have a first look at Decathlon's new walking shoe, and we've got those build-up sessions for your summer challenge. But until then, enjoy your sport walking, and I'll see you soon. Boundary, so by their very definition, very definition, I can't say very definition, challenge in the time. We're gonna, but it's especially valuable.